العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
يا أرحم الراحمين وحمدك الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
صلاة المغرب
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربي الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار بجاه محمد وآله الأطهار الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف يرحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد تسبيح
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اني اسالك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار من الذي والفوز بالجنة والإيمان في دار السلام ودوام النبي محمد عليه وعليه السلام اللهم ما بنا من نعمة لا إله إلا أنت استغفرك واتوب إليك
اللهم صل على محمد. There's a request for Namaz-e-Hadiya Mayyat for Marhum Sajjad Hussain, son of Ghulam Hussain, who passed away in an accident and was buried in Karachi today. So please go ahead and offer two rakat Namaz-e-Hadiya Mayyat.
No.
Also, so we'll be buried. Sadari Mir, right? Right. Allah. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربي الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي ونعمل صالحا ترضاه اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
محمد. تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها.
اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إنه ليس للمؤمن غير السبيل وإنما تمر بفترات تفكر ولا ترمي فأجول في قلبه البلدان فأنا فينا وما قال كالكيان لا أدري في سهل وأم في كبد أم في في السماء أم في بر أم في بر وعلى يديه من قبله ومن قبل تأخذ مباركك وسلامه بيده أنت الذي تقسم بلدك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم صل على محمد وآله واجعل يا ربي رزقي واسعا ومصدره سهلا ومصدره قريبا ولا تعني مثلك ما تقدرني فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. وصل على محمد وآله وصحبه إنك ذو فضل عظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد.
السلام عليكم يا رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا نبي الله. السلام عليكم يا حبيب الله. السلام عليكم يا خيرة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض توصلي ابن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب الأسر والزمان، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
اللهم صل على محمد.
Hare Risalat.
Nare Hakki.
You sit there in a chair and we can move closer if you have trouble seeing. Yeah, just for a couple of minutes.
No, sorry. Outside. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله، يا إمام الرحمة، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين، يا علي بن أبي طالب، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد، يا قرة عين الرسول، يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي، أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي، أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين، يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي، أيها الباكر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد، أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر، أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الحاد النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله حاجات. يا سادتي يا موالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وأدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد.
أحسنت. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك لعله يزكى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى صلوات الله محمد وآل محمد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Tuesday night, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your amal, dua, tawassul that was recited. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the shafaat of Masumeen alayhim salatu wassalam on the day of judgment and give us their razayat and their satisfaction, inshallah, in this world. And all those people who are in need of dua, those who are going through difficult time, struggling physically, spiritually, financially, mentally, however, emotionally, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the recitation of this very emotional dua association of 14 ma'asumeen, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring all of those people out of their difficulties, give them a quick recovery, inshallah. And on the same note, we also pray for all of those people who departed, two of the marhumeen, whose names were mentioned and we recited dua or salatul wahshat or salat hadiya mayyat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on those departed souls and give them a place in the jiwar of Masumeen alayhim wassalatu wassalam. Dua Tawassul, or rather Tuesday night program, usually we have tafsir. And thus far we've done the tafsir. We began with the tafsir of the 30th juz of Quran. So we did the tafsir of Surah Naba. Then we did the tafsir of Surah Nazi'at. And tonight, inshallah, we'll do a brief tafsir of Surah Abasa wa Tawalla. Now, of course, the method of doing the tafsir is not a very in-depth tafsir. We're not going in every single ayat. We're not talking about and elaborating on what each verse talks about. Rather, it's a holistic tafsir where Surah Naba, if I remember, in few Ramadan back, we actually did the entire tafsir, entire Surah Naba in the entire month of Ramadan, meaning 30 days we did the tafsir of Surah Naba, meaning that's how much there is as far as the matalib are concerned. Similarly, the case with Surah Nazi'at, that requires maybe 20, 30 sessions to go ahead and do the in-depth analysis of that surah. Similarly, Surah Abasa, which has 42 verses in it, by no means will do justice by doing a tafsir in 15 minutes or less than that. So what is this? Is basically just a, entire mafhum of the surah and the explanation and the understanding of the entire surah, which is enough to navigate when someone says, well, have you heard of Surah Abbas? I say, yeah, I've read it many times. What is it about? Boom, you're here, you'll be able to say a few words regarding this surah. Of course, a lot of time these lectures or these sessions that we have on Shab Jummah or Salatul Jummah or Tuesday night programs or any other majlis or adjustment that we have, usually the speeches that are delivered are not in an environment or not in a way which is conducive to learning, meaning it's not like a dars, and it shouldn't be a dars. It shouldn't be, a lesson that is you're attending a class in college or school or whatever. It should be given and delivered in a speech style where oratory should be there. But at the same time, you should also be learning something when, even if an orator is producing his greatness of his oratory and khitabat and all that stuff, is still there's things to learn from it. So something that lacks a lot of time in our daily programs and discussions is that we merely listen to what is being said, and it's very difficult to retain and as we walk out of it. So not that I'm putting anyone on the spot, or not that I'm asking anyone any questions, but we talked about Surah Naba 2 weeks ago. We talked about Surah Nazi'at a week ago. If I was to ask anyone, what do you remember from Surah Nazi'at? I doubt that people will be able to give me a very educated answer to that surah that we discussed. This is what the reason behind these tafsir, or the sessions of tafsir in Tuesday night, is that we're keeping it very light. We're keeping it very simple. We're keeping it to the extent where, all we're doing is we're going to be only discussing these things in a very light and simple manner, things that you can just take in the entire understanding of the entire surah without going in the depths and details of it. So I only recited the first few ayat, which says, Abbas wa tawalla, he frowned and turned away. Anja'ahul a'ma, when the blind man approached him. And how do you know? Maybe he would purify himself or take admonition, and the admonition would benefit him. But as for someone who is wealthy, you attend to him, though you are not liable if he does not purify himself. Basically, the surah begins with this act of being frowned. What is frowning? This one we understand. The word abasa or abus, another place in the Quran, the word abusan qamtarira has appeared in Surah Dahr, chapter 76. Meaning when you make a face, when you are annoyed by someone, when something is done which is not to your liking, when something is said which is not to your liking. So abasa means to frown or not pay attention to someone. We do that all the time. We make the face of abasa, or we do frown many a time. For example, we don't make eye contact with someone sometimes, or someone who's, for example, had done something against you. Now you're trying to avoid that person. You come across, you don't pay attention, you don't make eye contact, you don't speak to that person, you don't talk to that person, you don't even say hi, or you don't say hello, you don't even respond to salam even sometimes. Or you're sitting in a gathering and someone whom you're at odds with walks in, like, that face you make, yes, this person. And then you say this person, and then you start gossiping with the person sitting. What happened to him? This person did this person did that. So you make this face. As soon as you see this person walking in, you make that face. That is what abasa wa tawalla is. You make that face and then you turn away, as if you don't want to pay any attention. So we are a victim of that. We do that all the time. Maybe it is at work, maybe it is at home, maybe it's at our masjid, in our community places where we are amongst our community members. We do that all the time. So if someone has done something bad to you in the past, you'll come across that individual, your face frowns. You look at that person and you just make a face and you turn away. So as I said, in chapter 76, ayat number 10, Allah says, Inna nakhafu min rabbina yawman abusan qamtarira. That indeed we fear a frowning day and a fateful day from our Lord. So that day, Qiyamah, is also referred to as a frowning day, when your face will become like this, when you will be afraid of that day, and it's a fateful day. You will be what? Frowning on that day, not because someone you see, because of the amal and the actions that we have produced. For example, this surah has few names such as Abasa, which comes from the very first ayah, which means he frowned. Abasa is fi'l madi, past tense. Abasa means he frowned. Now, who is that he? That's where the discussion is. Who is this person referred to? Who is this person? Some people thought this is Rasulullah, because Quran is revealed on the Holy Prophet. And when the noble Prophet made this frowning face, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scolded him. We'll look into as to how much truth in there as far as this sort of tafsir is concerned. So one name is Abasa. Second name of the surah is Safara. Sin, Fa, Re, and then Ta, the round Ta. Safara comes from Safir, which means the ambassadors, the emissaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As in ayat number 15, it mentions the word Safara. Another name for the surah is Sakha, Suad, Alif, Kha, and Ta, round Ta at the end. Sakha. It refers to, very terrifying sound that we hear. Sakha is a sound that you'll hear when Qiyamah, for example, takes place. This terrifying sound. And even, when you have thunderstorms and you hear the thunder and you hear the loud, lightning, that sound also brings about this fear into you that God forbid lightning struck somewhere and you could really hear the grudging and all that. So this is where this terrifying sound is, which is sakha. Verse number 33 of the surah has the word sakha. Therefore, the surah is also known as Surah Sakha. This word, although has not appeared anywhere else in Quran. This surah is also called A'ma, blind, because there was a blind man who walked in. As you mentioned, I think in the previous discussions, that the names were not necessarily directed by Rasulullah. Names were adopted later on and became popular amongst the Muslimin, that they started referring to different surahs with different names. Surah Baqarah, as we mentioned, is not 286 ayat. If you show it to a non-Muslim, he says, well, this surah is known as Surah Baqarah. Meaning what? Meaning the cow. So he would say, what does that mean? The entire surah talks about cows? Is it all about Baqarah? I said, no, there may be a couple of ayat about Baqarah. No, why do you call it? Well, that stands out amongst all the other discussions, for example. And not that it stands out, maybe other discussions stand out. But that was something which people referred to the surah and became the name of it, with the takrar, with the continuous. All right. So the surah is also called A'ma because of the context of revelation, where a blind man whose name was Abdullah ibn Maktoum came to the Holy Prophet asking him to read the ayat of Quran, or he was asking some questions from Quran and he was blind. So let's say we're sitting over here, and here in Masjid, all of us are sitting over here and we're having our Quran circle. We're discussing Quran, right? A blind man walks in, not knowing that we are doing this Quran, and walks in. Of course, he can hear, but maybe he doesn't know what's going on. Someone is reciting Quran on the corner. Not everybody's reciting Quran. So he comes, where's Rasulullah sitting, for example, or in this case, where the leader of the prayer is sitting, for example, or he's sitting in the mihrab. So he comes and walks into the mihrab while I'm leading the Quran session. He comes up and he talks to me. Maulana, can you recite some ayat for me? Can you teach me some ayat? Can you teach me some surahs? And I'm having this session right here, halqa going on. Can you not? Well, of course you can't see, but I frown at that person. Imagine this blind man walks in, this mu'min who's blind. We all know he's mu'min. He walks in and we're having this Quran circle. He comes and he stands and says, Maulana, can you teach me some ayat of Quran? I said, go away. And I frown and I look at you and I make this frowning face and I turn away from this person. What would you make of me? What would you think of me? This person is blind. You don't treat him like that. Is that how you treat a blind man? Is that how you show disrespect and lack of ethics? You're teaching Quran to us over here and you got zero ethics, that you looked at a blind man and you turn away and you made a frowning face. So this is where the Prophet was busy convincing the head of Quraysh, such as Abu Jahl, Utbah, and others, so that they may convert to Islam, which of course they didn't. They actually went to war with Rasulullah after the migration. Rasulullah, according to some of these riwayat, is the person whose face frowned. We'll look into that. That's a very important discussion. There are 41, or as I said, 42 verses in the surah. There are 133 words, and there are 533 letters in this surah. Aims and objectives. The real objective of the surah is to remind everyone about Tawheed, Ma'ad, the Day of Judgment, ethical values, and the importance of Quran. These are, pretty much main discussions that are in these 40-some verses. But the surah can be summarized into these 5 discussions. Number 1, severe punishment and scolding for a person who mistreats a blind man. That's a discussion all in itself. Or anyone, for example, who's handicapped by any means or has anything less. Number 2, virtues and importance of noble Quran. Number 3, disbelieving and showing ungratefulness in front of the favors of Allah. Number 4, explanation of some of the favors of Allah in the areas of food consumed by humans and animals, so that the sense of gratitude comes into you and it awakens the heart of insan. So you have these, ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are being mentioned. Why are they being mentioned? The ni'mat is being discussed so that you show gratitude. Lastly, description of some terrifying sounds and shocking incidents of the Day of Judgment and the fate and the destiny of mu'mineen and kuffar on that day. These are the main 5 discussions that you find. What are the virtues, features, and the thawab of reciting the surah? Ubay ibn Ka'b narrates from the Holy Prophet, who said, one who recites the surah, Surah Abbas, will enter the day of judgment while his face is smiling and shining. That is one of the, features of the surah, that you recite it, not necessarily in namaz, outside of namaz. Recite the surah, you'll enter the day of judgment while your face is smiling and your face is shining. The surah was revealed in Mecca between the migration of Muslims to Habasha with Ja'far al-Tayyar. They went towards Habasha, and in between Rasulullah ascended to Mi'raj. So between Mi'raj and the first migration of Muslimin in Mecca, the surah was revealed. It was revealed after Surah An-Najm. So Rasulullah, went to Mi'raj after that, and Surah Najm is one of those surahs which were revealed, talks about the Mi'raj of Rasulullah. It's the 80th surah in the current order of the surahs in Quran. So it's placed at number 80. 78 is where 30th just starts with Surah Abbas, 79 is Surah Nazi'at, and 80 is Surah Abasa. But from the chronological order of revelation, it's number 24. So this was number 24th surah that was revealed on Rasulullah. First was Iqra, Bismi Rabbikal Ladhi. Second was Noon wal Qalam, and Surah Muddassir, Surah Muzammil, and 24th was Surah Abasa. So it's one of the earlier surahs. That's why it's revealed where? In Makkatul Mukarramah. It is well connected with the previous surah, An-Nazi'at. That's why it's placed in that order. So it's placed at number 80 because it's connected with Surah Nazi'at. But it's revealed what? In number 24. So there you go. This is the reason why Rasulullah placed it like this. Rasulullah placed it right here at number 80. And then after this surah will go. But it was revealed what? Way back in Makkah. So that's how the difference is. The reason behind placing it there is because it has connection with Surah Nazi'at. As we see in Surah Nazi'at, it ends with the warning that causes fear in the heart of those who are already afraid of Qiyamah. Right away, the surah begins and talks about the continuation of that sound of Qiyamah that you will hear. And therefore, you can derive a connection between the two. This surah is amongst the Mufassalat. You should know by now what Mufassalat is. We've mentioned that from the very beginning. So there are sets of surahs in Quran. Those were called Tiwal, the long surahs, like the Baqarahs and the Al Imrans and the Maidas and all those. And then you had the Mathani, and then you had the Mufassalat. Mufassalat are the shorter surahs. Mufassal, they're called because of the fasila in between with Bismillah. But there are many surahs like this, Mufassalat, and they're short surahs, and there are shorter ayat in it. That's why they're called Mufassalat. So this is amongst the Mufassalat. Ibn Qutaybah said Mufassalat are the chapters that are shorter than Mathani while divided by a Bismillah. So this is how you differentiate between, because this surah was revealed in the atmosphere when Rasulullah had started propagating the religion of Islam actively. Sometimes the leaders of Quraysh would come and inquire about Islam, and Prophet would graciously respond to their request. There is a narration from the books of Ahl Sunnah. So this is in Tafsir Ad-Durr al-Manthur, volume 6, page 314, or under the surah. If you can just go under the surah in Tafsir Durr al-Manthur, you'll find this riwayat, which talks about the context of revelation as such. Story of Abdullah ibn Maktum, who was a blind man. One day he entered the masjid while Rasulullah was busy speaking to the heads of Quraysh, Abu Jahl and Utbah, as I mentioned before. Prophet made a frowning face as Abdullah ibn Maktum approached him, not knowing who Rasulullah is sitting with and what is he indulged in discussion. So he's blind man, he knows where Rasulullah is sitting. So blind men, they know where to go. So he goes with his stick or whatever, and comes to Rasulullah while Rasulullah is engaged in speaking to the heads of Quraysh, and he interrupts. Rasulullah made a frowning face, turned away, showing his displeasure. Allah revealed this surah to scold Prophet that you turned away from a blind man. How dare you do so? This is what riwayat that is there. In majority of the Shia sources, a narration which addresses that a man from Banu Umayyah was sitting there between Abu Jahl and Utbah and others. There's a man from Banu Umayyah who was also sitting there speaking to Rasulullah. This Abdullah ibn Maktum, this blind man, approached. That Umayyad, he frowned and he turned his face away in displeasure, not Rasulullah. There's a riwayat in our books of ahadith which talk about that that person was the subject to scolding and punishment, and not Rasulullah. The purpose of the surah is to scold and punish anyone who prefers wealthy over weak and miskeen amongst the mu'mineen. Respects Ahl al-Dunya, but disrespects Ahl al-Akhirah. Person is in love with Akhirat. He just is scolded. After the scolding, there's an entire dars akhlaq. If you look at the surah, there's a dars akhlaq basically. A lecture on akhlaqiyat and ethics and morality, on who mankind is weak and helpless in his creation, that he's constantly in need. With that, he's so ungrateful towards the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does these two things go together? You're in need, you're weak, you're helpless, yet you're still what? Arrogant. There's no mention in the surah that the person who frowned was Rasulullah, as mentioned by the many of the narrations of Ahl Sunnah. In our books, Marhum Sayyid Murtada, brother of Sayyid Radi, in his book Mutashabih al-Quran, he rejects all of these narrations. He said, we categorically, these sort of narrations might be in our books as well. I'm not saying it's only found in the books of Ahl Sunnah, but our scholars have been careful not to use those narrations under this, while there are other contradictory narrations which reject this idea that Rasulullah was the one who frowned and not someone else. So Sayyid Murtada, he rejected these narrations, and he went ahead and said that this other verses of Quran which are revealed to praise Rasulullah, the noble character of Rasulullah, the high character of Rasulullah, that innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. O Prophet, you are at the highest standard of morality in the same Quran. Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun ma anta bi ni'mat rabbika majnun. And towards the end it says, wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. You are at the highest standard of morality, O Rasul. And then Allah comes down and says, Abbas wa tawalla, how dare did you turn away from this blind man? Do you think these two ayat make sense to put together for the same person whom Allah is praising? You are at the highest standard of morality. Rasulullah says, I was raised and sent to perfect the akhlaq. And then Rasulullah would go ahead and frown his face over a blind man who comes and questions him. And that's not just the only. Chapter 68, verse number 5 talks about la'alaka khuluqin azim. Surah Hijr, verse number 88 says, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah is asking Prophet to be humble with mu'mineen. وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. O Prophet, spread your wings of mercy for mu'mineen. Spreading the wings is a metaphor that show what? Show respect to them. Be merciful to them. At another place in Surah Shu'ara, verse number 12 to 15, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. O Rasul, spread your wings of mercy for those who are following you. And then, Abbas wa tawalla, how dare did you turn? That does not go together with these other ayat of Quran, where Allah is praising Prophet for his high morals, to go ahead and scold him for such low morals. Aside from this, if Prophet had such akhlaq based on some verses, he wouldn't have been able to execute the duties of tabligh. Surah Al-Imran 159 says what? لَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّ مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. O Prophet, if you were stern-hearted, because becoming frown and turning away from someone in disrespect is what? Stern-heartedness. It comes from qasawat qalbi. Because I am stern-hearted, I turn away from people. I show disrespect. It says, O Prophet, لَوْ كُنْتَ, if you were فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ, if you were stern-hearted, these people would have left you a long time ago. But on the contrary, you're very soft-hearted. You attract people like a magnet. People come to you. You're not stern-hearted. And then after that, 10 verses after Abbas wa tawalla are revealed just for frowning and turning away in front of a blind man to whom it doesn't matter what this person is doing, is smiling or making a bad face. Imagine a blind man walks up to you. You can make any type of face. I don't want to make any faces, but you can make any type of face. Do whatever you want. Does that matter to this blind man? If he can't see you smiling or you frowning, why would Allah make such a big deal out of this? This is where the true akhlaq of Islam comes into play. That only merely, even a blind man who cannot see, it said, doesn't matter if a person standing in front is smiling or making faces. This shows how sensitive Islam is when it comes to those who are deprived. So therefore, do not marginalize these people. They are indeed, should be respected, how Rasulullah displayed as far as the respect is concerned. So this was just a brief explanation of Surah Abbas wa Tawalla. We didn't even discuss all the ayat, just gave you an overview of what this surah is all about. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability that we get rid of these akhlaq razila, the bad akhlaq from us, and we're able to adopt and bring into us the akhlaq, those which are the praiseworthy akhlaq. We're able to get rid of any sort of animosity that we may have with other individuals. We have the ability to forgive and forget when it comes to dealing with other individuals. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alaikum ya Habib Allah. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa jaddika wa abi. Wa ala ummika wa akhika wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya gharib al-ghuraba. Assalamu alaikum ya mu'inatu al-faib al-fuqara. Assalamu alaikum ya shams al-shumus wa anis al-nufus ayyun watfun ma'adatun sarib namus wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya sahib al-asr al-zaman. Assalamu alaikum ya imam al-insi wal janna. Assalamu alaikum ya sharik al-Quran. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajak wa sahhala Allahu makhrajak wa zuhurak. وجعلنا من أوانك والصالح ورحمة الله